In this video, we will look at loops in JavaScript. Loops allow you to execute a block of code repeatedly as long as a specific condition is true. So we'll first of all start with how to write a simple loop in JavaScript. But let's look at a scenario first. Let's say I want to print the numbers 0 to 5 to my terminal, so I can just go ahead and say console.log 1 and then copy this down 2, 3, 4, 5. And when I go to my terminal, I'll just say node, then run my code. We see the numbers printed 1 to 5 in the terminal, but we can use loops to simplify this. So the first one we'll look at is a simple for loop. So this is the syntax. So we write the for keyword, and then in parentheses we write our initializer. So I'll say let I be equal to, let's say, 1. I want to start from 1. Then I'll write my condition. So for I is less or equal to 5, then semicolon, then finally my iteration, and then in curly bracket I put in my piece of code or the logic that will be executed. So I'll just say console.log I and then save. So let me go ahead and explain this again. So in order to write a for loop, we first of all start with the for keyword, and then in parentheses we put in the initializer. So the first part is the initializer. So I say let I be equal to 1. So I'm just initializing a variable here and then separating that with what? A semicolon. And then my condition, which is for I is less or equal to 5, then semicolon, then my iteration, that's I plus plus, or I is equal to I plus 1. So this I plus plus is the shortcut syntax for I is equal to I plus 1 and save. It will do the same thing. So I'll just say I plus plus and save. So when I go back to my terminal, and then let me clear this quickly and go ahead and run my code, we get the same result. So instead of writing multiple console.logs, I have just used this for loop to simplify that in just 3 lines of code, so instead of 5 lines of code. So this is how we can use a for loop to execute a piece of code repeatedly. Now another way we can loop through an array. So we want to look at how we can loop through an array. So I'll just go ahead and then comment this out and just declare an array quickly. I'll just say const, let me say cars, and then set it to, I'll say Tesla here, and then Rivian, and then Lucid. Then finally, let me just say BMW and save. So these are cars. Yeah, so let's look at how we can loop through this. So I'll just say for, and then I'll set my variable, initialize my variable. So you can use I or anything. You can use J. So I'll just go ahead and use I, which is very popular. So I is equal to 0 because we know that arrays are 0 index. And then I'll say for I is less or equal to cars dot length. You know that the dot length property gets the number of elements in an array. Then I'll say I plus plus, and then I'll just console.log cars at that specific index and save. When I go to my terminal and then clear it quickly and then go ahead and run my code, we get the individual elements printed in the console. That is what Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, and then what BMW. So that is it about, or let me just do this and go ahead and run it again. So we get it, Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, and then BMW. So this is how we can loop through an array using this simple for loop. There's another way we can loop through an array using what we call the for of loop. So the syntax goes like this. So for, then in parentheses, so I'll just say const, let me say car of cars. I'll just console.log car and save. When I go ahead to my terminal and run my code, we get the same result. So over here, we don't have access to the index of the individual elements in the array, whilst in the first one, we can access the index of the individual elements in an array. So this is a very more concise syntax of looping through an array. So let's go ahead and look at how we can loop through an object. So I'll go ahead and then declare a simple object. So I'll say const person, a person object. So I'll just put here name, I'll put here Bob, and then put age of, let's say, 20, and then save. I'll just put a hobbies array here. Let me just uh, put it here and just say reading, and then just put sky here and save. So these are the hobbies. So now let's look at how we can loop through this object using the for in loop. So the syntax goes like this. So for, then we say const key in person. Let me just close the terminal quickly. Key in person. So I'll just console.log person at the particular key. So when I go to my terminal, clear it quickly and run my code, we get the individual values. So we know that in objects, these are the keys and then these are the values. So we are using the key to access the individual values in the object. So you see Bob and then 20 and then the array printed in the console or in the terminal. So this is how we can loop through an object using the for in loop. So the last loop I would like us to look at is called the while loop. So the while loop goes like this. So we say while, we use the while keyword, then we put in our condition in parentheses. So I'll just say while, let me just first of all declare variable. Let me say let count be equal to what? 0. So I'll just say let while count is less than 10. Then in parentheses we put in our block of code. Let me close the terminal quickly. So I'll just say console.log count, console.log count, and then we put in our iteration at the end. So I'll just say count plus plus. When we don't do this, we get what we call an infinite loop. So you have to put in your iteration at the end of the loop, or it can also be a break statement or anything that will terminate the loop. Other than that, we'll get an infinite loop. So I'll go ahead and clear my terminal and run my code. So we get the numbers 0 to what? 9 printed in the console. So these are the various loops that we have in JavaScript. That's all for this video. Please subscribe and follow for more videos and content like this. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.